Good evening, good evening, good evening. So back with another trade breakdown, and just going to talk through my sell from today. Pound yen again, sell on London Open in anticipation of volume. Was able to trade that down to this zone here and get a 1% win, which is fantastic. So I'm just going to pop back to my chart, which is my pre-market analysis. So this is what I drew up this morning before I came to my session, and this is what I wanted to see. This was my plan for my session. So kind of just going to talk through this. My bias is bearish, which means that I'm looking for sales for this session, or sales make more sense. Now, looking at this chart and looking at how the previous 4-hour candle rejected our breakout area, which is a 4-hour support and resistance zone. So what makes more sense for me? Well, it doesn't make sense to sell into this, right? On the basis that we've had rejection from it here, we've had reaction from it here, we've had rejection here, reaction here. It's a support zone. Like, I don't want to be selling into that, right? Because there's every possibility that this move here is just a pullback for further upside. Yes, the session bias is sells, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're always going to get a sell in the session, right? Sales make more sense, yes. However, if you're just looking at this from like a technical standpoint, you know, we're moving up in the market, we're just breaking out. This is just a deeper pullback to this previous level of structure for potentially price to do this, right? So when I'm looking at this from a 4-hour perspective, where makes more sense for me to sell, you know, because my bias is sales, I'm looking for sales. So I identified below the previous 4-hour wick, the previous 4-hour low, sorry, was the best possible area for me to get involved in a sell. Now the reason being is because we're below this zone, right? And if I'm looking at zones, I'm kind of looking at this support zone and this resistance and support zone. So if we're actually trading below this, it makes more sense for us to test the opposite end of this zone, which is down here, right? So that's my thought process. So I'm like, well, and the fact is, if we're actually trading below the previous 4-hour low, that means, one, we're failing to push up. If we're below this, we're then going to be below Asian low, most recent resistance on or support on the 30-minute. We're going to be below 1-hour support. So we're going to be below all these levels. So if you think about buying from here, like what you've got 30-minute support, 1-hour support, 4-hour resistance, 4-hour support, 4-hour support zones. Like, you've got a lot of confluence to support a potential buy. So if we're actually below all these levels, that's obviously a good sign for continuation to the downside, in line with the session bias being bearish. So that is what I wanted to see. I wanted to be below here, and this is just looking at a 4-hour time frame. Like, I haven't even looked at the 30-minute, I haven't looked at the 1-hour. I'm just scoping this out from a 4-hour, and I actually did drop to the 1-hour and the 30, and we were changing structure back to the upside in terms of forming supports and higher supports. So I didn't even like what I was seeing. I'd already identified I'm not going to trade into that, so I don't even need to look at those time frames. I've just identified on the 4-hour, I'm trading here, I'm trading to here. All I need to work out is where my stop's going to be, right? So basically, also what I was identifying here is on point 4 is I've just noted here, I don't like how the 1-hour and the 30-minute is at the moment, so I'm only viewing the 4-hour. Maybe price will hold support above Asian high, which will make for risky buys because it's going against session bias. So if we actually put, like, at this moment in time, we're above Asian high. So if we pull back down and we actually fail to continue down and we form a support above, then we could potentially buy, because we're doing this. And where have we come to? We've came to a previous level of structure, being the resistance zone, and that's where we are rejecting from. So what I'm looking for is, I'm looking at when price leaves this zone, is a strong move down, and with volume. This trade was sort of tailored towards volume. I know every day this week, bar maybe Tuesday, we've had volume at 8 a.m. The only other day was 7:30, right? And the largest candle of every day up until today has been the 8 a.m. candle. So I know that if we're pushing up in the market, all I have to do is wait. When we start to reject here and start to push down and volume comes in and I can see volume coming into the market, this was a major key for me because, and I'll kind of talk about it when it dropped down the time frames, but I wanted to wait for volume and I wanted to be able to see the direction that volume was pushing price and just hop on that train once it's going. And what I was, and I've kind of got a couple of wee yellow arrows here, right? And what this is, I should have drawn one here, but I'll leave that for now. And what this is just a visual representation of when price actually gets into these areas in between these zones, what happens. Well, as we can see, when we broke down here and we closed below or broke the low, we tap down here again. Even though we're moving up from here, when we come back down this way, we get to this area cleanly. Again, push up, we tapped in, and then we push down. So obviously this from here and from here, price is moving up in the market. So you might be able to say the only relevant one is this one here, because we're actually moving down in the market, and that's what we're doing here. We're moving down. So this just gives me confidence to say, well, do you know what, this is a good area to get involved in a trade, because when we break this level, there's a good chance that we can test the opposite end of this range or this zone because of what has happened recently in the past. So that was my plan, right? So I'm just going to hop back over to the chart. Let me just come out of here. And if I just drop to the 1 hour, as we can see, we've formed a support bang on this 4 hour support zone. This candle has respected the support by failing to break below and closing a bullish candle, which confirms the support. So from 5 to 6, we've got a support, right? So if I just kind of skip through 6 to 7, we've actually broken out of Asian high. Now, similar to yesterday, if we just look at yesterday, it was kind of like basically a replica of what happened yesterday. We have Asian high and Asian low somewhere in here. We break out. People are going to take buys because they're anticipating this. Same things happened today. But what happened yesterday was volume came into the market and we continued down. Obviously, taking a buy here isn't great because what you're doing is you're going against the session bias, which is bearish. Exact same as today. Session bias is bearish. So that's why I wanted to see, could we form a higher support maybe here, respecting the Asian range, respecting the 4 hour resistance, respecting this whole area, and then we can get that push. You know, kind of like yesterday's move here, this sort of support formation and these candles breaking out, it's not at any sort of higher time frame level or any higher time frame zone, so it's kind of in like no man's land. And the fact that these two candles, especially the 2 a.m. candle, actually closed below this 4 hour support zone, so it makes sense then any pullbacks in is just continuation. But the difference between yesterday and today was the fact that we actually formed support on the 4 hour zone, right? So selling into that zone is going to be difficult if we don't have volume, right? We know that volume doesn't respect levels. It'll just smash through them all, right? So when I sort of seen price playing out, and if I just skip through, if I go to the 30-minute time frame, if I just skip through a candle, we can see that we closed outside, pulled back, respected the zone and pushed up. Now, if I just bring on my short position and I just go to, if I just speed this up a little bit, as we can see, the 30-minute here, 7:30 to 8, closed bearish, but again, respected the zone. And the next candle continued down, right? Now, that's where I got involved because I had a sell stop below the wick, and my stop loss was above Asian low, right? Now, what's different, like I've just explained what's different from today to yesterday. However, the reason why I got involved here because this was my plan. I believed easier sales came when we were below this level. And the fact that we came from such a strong support zone on the higher time frame, there's no guarantee that volume is going to go in the direction of the bias, right? Does it make sense for it to do so? Yes, but there's no guarantee, right? So, because what you might think is, well, I know people that got involved in sales here, right? Kind of similar to yesterday. We broke the low and then we continued down. Exact same happened. We continued down. So by the time price actually got to my entry, you know, this price had already moved, you know, 65 pips, right? And I think the 8 o'clock candle on Monday or Tuesday was like 64 pips, 50 pips, and then there was one candle, the 8 o'clock, it might have been Monday, I'm not too sure, was actually 100 pips, right? So I know the sort of average size that the sort of candle we're getting this week at 8 o'clock, right? And then of course, if you look at the candles after, you may get a spike down or you might get the continuation, because typically with volume you will get the continuation, right? So what some people might say is, well, you could have been in here, because if you were in here, you could have just been finished here, right? And obviously me getting in where I'm getting in, I'm running the risk of this maybe being the end of the volume push. And then because we've closed maybe below, we maybe start to see some form of pullback, right? So that's absolutely 100% correct. You know, I could run that risk. However, by me entering below the low of the 4 hour and being below all this support, higher time frame zones, things like that, I'm eliminating the possibility of taking a short up here and volume actually saying, do you know what, I'm not going to go down today, I'm going to fuck off to the upside. And what I actually prevented myself from getting involved in was something like this happening, where price comes down and then we actually fuck off like that, right? Now, does it make sense for price to do that? Not necessarily, because their bias is bearish, and we can exactly see what happened yesterday. So usually volume will continue in line with the session bias, right? But that's not always accurate. You know, you can't guarantee that that's going to happen. And the fact that we bounced off higher time frame resistance turns support, we've changed structure on the 30-minute, we've changed structure on the 1 hour. This could just be a pullback for this, right? So by me not entering here, I eliminate the possibility of me getting caught in that, right? So, and I already identified on the 4 hour, I like sales below here. So my buy stop or sell stop get triggered. We push down. We did stall around here when I get tapped in for a couple of minutes. And then I would say maybe like the last minute or two of the 30-minute actually give a strong push down. And then the next 30-minute opened and just tanked in line with the previous candle. So if we look at this on the 4 hour, that's how the 4 hour actually closed. The last 1 hour actually done a pullback. And that's that trade. And that's the important thing of kind of marking out your zones and being done, you know. And when we talk about where's the most efficient part of the move, or where's the cleaner part of the move, yes, you could say, and especially when you think about as well, when we want to get involved in trades, we don't want to get involved at the start. You know, we don't want to try and pick the bottom or pick the top. We want to be able to see what price is doing and then capture the middle of the move. So you don't want to be at the start or the end, you want to be in the middle. And this is exactly how I viewed this trade. Because if you think about it, looking at this, price was all the way up here, right? So I'll just say from here. So price is up 43 pips, right? We're pushing to the upside. And then London volume kicks in and we actually push down. So when price is pushing down, I can actually see price moving down and volume breaking the supports. So I'm able to, I know that, right, that's the start of the move. I know we're not going to continue up because we're breaking supports, we're breaking the low. So when I'm getting in, I'm capturing the middle of the move, and then the end of the move is where price pulls back because of this zone. So the key thing for me was I was able to eliminate the possibility of volume kicking to the upside based on where we're reacting at. If we break the 4-hour low with volume, there's a very good chance we'll continue down, and I'm able to see that, you know, because I've been able to see price move down 60 pips. So I know we're going this direction, which makes it easier for me to, you know, hop on the train and get involved in that move. So that was my trade breakdown, and this was all just based off the 4-hour, you know. And I looked at the 1 hour and the 30-minute this morning, and I seen price moving up, and I said to myself, there's no chance I'm going to sell into here based on how the 1 hour was looking, respecting we're breaking out. Yes, it's kind of similar to yesterday, but what was more important for me today is where we were coming from. We're coming from this 4-hour support, which is a strong resistance turn support across the board. So I don't want to be selling into that, because what if I sell into that and price actually just rejects and continues to the upside, and this is just a pullback for further upside? Because if you think about it from a 4-hour point of view, if this is our structure where we have broken out of here, this is just a pullback to previous structure to potentially leave. So when price was leaving in here and rejecting, I didn't want to get caught in a potential, you know, sell, which was just a pullback to continue to the upside. So that was my trade breakdown. I think it was pretty straightforward. You just had to be patient and wait and get involved. And for me, the easier option was to wait for the break of the 4-hour low, which confirms we're not going up. That's really it. And if it's tied in with volume, volume is the thing that's going to give us that push. If we didn't have volume today, we'd more than likely not take this trade, because looking at what's left in between here on the lower time frames, it's quite choppy. And as we know, volume doesn't respect levels. So as we push down, volume didn't care about these supports and resistances in here. But if it was at a time where volume wasn't likely to be present, like on the open, there's a good chance that there would have been some reaction in here. So that is my trade breakdown, and this trade was my 86th trade this year, and I set out a goal on Christmas last year to achieve 50% you know, actual gain percentage by the end of the year, and I actually achieved that today, 6 months in the year. So I've kind of superseded that, which I'm quite proud of, and happy. So it's kind of just shows like the progression that being part of the community has done, which is fantastic. So yeah, a good milestone and a good achievement for me with this trade, and this kind of locked in that 50. I'm sitting at the moment, I'm sitting on 50.43, but no, I'm just buzzing like. But yeah, that's that trade breakdown. So if you watch it again, like I say, I appreciate the time, because you know, one trade can be a 20-minute video, and I just like to go in depth and sort of explain my thought process, areas I like, areas I don't like, and things like that. So again, thanks very much for watching, and cheers.